Where's my phone? Because in about 5 minutes, never mind, 2 minutes, the most delicious pancake bowl is about to come out of the oven, and then I am gonna feast. Good morning everyone, it's Belle. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hello, and if you've come back, thank you so much. Today is a continuation video of the best BookTok books that I've read because of BookTok video that I did last week. Today I'm going to be talking about the books that I just don't think are worth the hype / the worst books that I have read because of BookTok. With the good always comes the bad, and I feel like after a few years now of reading many books that I found because of BookTok recommendations, I have found, equally as much books that I just don't think are worth the hype. So I have a list of 25 books on my phone here that I read specifically because I saw them on TikTok. They are not books that I read because I like the author that I saw on BookTok. Like, these have to be either books that I saw somebody recommending on TikTok for me to have picked them up or bought them. Like, they can't be new releases of a BookTok author that I've already read, if that makes sense. So these are purely books that I read because I saw them hyped on BookTok. They're not like, because I love Elsie Silver, right? Like, and I did not like Wild Side by her. A book like that is not going to be on there because that wasn't hyped. Like, I read that as a new release, even though she's a popular author. Does that make sense? So it has to be a particular book that I saw recommended to me. So I am so excited because I feel like you guys are just as messy. Oh, my pancakes are ready to get out of the oven. I'm gonna go downstairs, I'm gonna grab that and bring it back up. And without further ado, let's get comfy, let's get cozy, and let's get right on into this video. You guys know I'm like in my meal prepping era. I found this recipe for a protein pancake bowl and I've been doing little twists on it. So it's usually like a strawberry and white chocolate pancake bowl, but today I've done a banana and chocolate. It's a little bit burnt because I was talking to you guys, but these are so good. So if you see me munching throughout the video, it's because it's breakfast time, and yeah, enjoy if you see me munching. So as I said, you guys, I do have 25 books here. These are going to be in no particular order. There's no there probably is like the worst book that I've read because of BookTok. I don't know. I just went through my Goodreads history. These books that I'm going to show you are books that I rated lower than 3 stars, because to me, 3 stars is a good rating. But if I rated any of them lower, to me, that's not worth the hype. There is one book in here that I think makes an exception to the rule. Let's say like less than 3.5 stars. So 3.5 stars and below. Again, 3.5 stars, not a bad rating, but to me, that's like not worth the hype. If a book is like worth the hype in BookTok land, I would say it's usually 4 stars or above for me. That's just how I rate things. So first up, I'm just going to kick us off with a bang because I know this is such a controversial book, but my first BookTok book that I don't think is worth the hype is Magnolia Parks. Now, I know that this one highly comes down to personal preference and opinions. If you love the drama and the gossip girl, toxic friendship, toxic relationship thing, you are probably one of the people that really enjoys this book. But to me, I just I read the first book and I did not read the rest because I got to the end of it and I just thought, oh my God, this is the most toxic group of friends that I've ever read about in my life. This relationship is not healthy and I don't understand how we can romanticize this and this lifestyle. So I was just so disappointed by it because I fell prey to the fact that this was one of the biggest series ever. I went and bought all the beautiful, tall paperbacks that have those gorgeous original designs before they changed over to the B formats. So I had the whole, series because I was so convinced that I was gonna love these books. And this is gonna be my first example for, if you decide to read a book off of TikTok, please look up what it is about, because most of the time people on TikTok will actually not tell you what books are about. They're just gonna hold them up and say to read them. And a lot of us fall prey to this. That's why I personally tried to tell you guys what the books are about when I recommend them, because if I had known that this was about people who cheated on each other and friends who are just awful for starters, I would not have picked this book up, because I don't do the cheating trope and I do not do toxic friends. We are not in high school, and for these people to be adults, I don't mess with it. It's just something that is not something that I enjoy. So I was so incredibly disappointed with this book. This was one of the first books that I rated 1 star because I can't get behind it. To me, if you cheat on someone, there's no coming back from that. If you physically cheat on somebody, there is absolutely no coming back for that. I understand it's fiction, but like I could not see myself continuing on a 5-book series. I know that there are other couples that take the lead, but I could not see myself continuing if that is how we started out. So this is one that people love or hate. And unfortunately, I'll be a Magnolia Parks hater until the end of my days. As we go down the list, you guys will probably start to like understand the types of books that I don't like and tropes that I don't like. So this is why now I research a lot more. The next book is Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. Again, without spoiling, I guess, this I disliked for a very similar reason that I disliked Magnolia Parks. And it makes me really sad because this book had such a great concept and I flew through it so fast. Like I read it so quickly because it was beautiful. I love friends to lovers. I love past present vibes. But when it was revealed why these two don't speak to each other anymore, I was so furious because I was like, how did you just ruin a beautiful book and a beautiful story in one scene? You ruined the whole book. It's such a lazy cop-out to me. Like I'm trying not to spoil what these books were about, but like the reason that the main couple split up has been interpreted 2 different ways by the readers. Some people see it one way, some people see it another way, and it's a very like difficult subject to broach. To me, it was cheating. To other people, it is something else, and I completely understand why. But to me, like as somebody who has been cheated on before, I've heard those excuses before, and it's just rubbish. So to me, I was just like so upset that that is how the story ended up unfolding because so many people love this book, and I would have loved it so much had that not been thrown in at the end as the reason why they stopped speaking. It just infuriated me to no end, and I will forever be sad that that is how the story ended up going and that people love it even though that happened. The next one I'm going to talk about is difficult because I'm just going to tell you, it's Metal Slinger by Rachel Schneider. I actually loved the plot twist of this book, okay? So don't get me wrong, the plot twist has me so gagged that I will be reading book 2. I hated the rest of this book. And like, is that good enough a reason to pick up the second book? Probably not. But to me, this book as a whole was not good enough to get the hype that it got. The plot twist, yes, is worth the hype. The rest of the book, guys, it is so slow. I really struggle and get frustrated with, especially like fantasy, romantasy books where we spend the entire book going from one place to the other, like a journey from one place to the other, especially when there is no substance. And like for a book that is not that big for fantasy, mind you, we just spent so long doing the same stuff in the same stretches of plays. Nothing was happening. I really struggled to get through it because, to be honest, you guys, this much of the book is absolutely terrible. It's actually really bad. The plot twist makes everything make sense, but even if I were to go back and reread the book knowing the plot twist now, I still do not think that the quality of this book would be good. So I would like to see what happens in book 2, but again, I do not think that this is worth the hype. The plot twist is wonderful, but the book as a whole, guys, you have to look at the book as a whole. It is not as good as everybody says it is. I'm really sorry. Next up is a little old dark romance. I have Caught Up by Nevessa Allen, which funnily enough is a book that I read only recently. So I've included this one in the list because I read Lights Out because of TikTok, and then I just like didn't read this for some reason. Like I was just really busy or what have you. And then I started to see this get like a lot of hype again on TikTok. So I picked it up because of TikTok. Like I decided to continue on because of TikTok, and I do not think that this one is worth the hype. This one was awful, you guys. It was just all spice and no plot. And I understand that it's a dark romance and a lot of the book is going to be carried by spice, but to me, it was not good enough. The plot was horrendous. It was like non-existent in my mind. I only read this like a couple of weeks ago, and if you were to ask me what happened in this book, I genuinely couldn't tell you other than the fact that they just banged all the time. It was not good, guys. Next up is another one that I think is going to upset a lot of people. It is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, which is so funny for me to hold up considering how much I adore yours truly. This one, guys, I have never hated a female main character more in my life, and hate is a really strong word. She is just the worst. She's so mean to this male main character. She is ashamed of him for the entire book. This poor man is like down bad crying at the gym, obsessed with her, and she is embarrassed to tell her friends, her family. She keeps him hidden. She doesn't want anybody knowing about him because of his position in life, which is so so terrible. And for people to idolize this relationship, like I spent this whole book feeling so sorry for Daniel, and she was just the worst. Like genuinely was one of the worst FMCs. She's just mean and a terrible person and selfish. So I could not get behind this book. I think I ended up giving it 2 stars only for Daniel because I loved him so much. I was like, mate, I hope they get divorced. If I ever do another TikTok where I'm like book couples that I think will get a divorce, it is these two because she is just the worst. I think I've said the worst about 65 times when I've talked about this book just now. Up next, I have The Final Girls Support Group. This is by Grady Hendrix, I think it is. This is a thriller or horror, or I don't really know. Basically about these final girls. So if you've watched horror movies before, you'll know that a final girl is the last one, like the last man standing basically at the end of a horror movie, and it's usually like a girl, like a teenage girl. So it's basically like this book about a support group for all of them in the aftermaths of their situation. So if you ever wondered what happens to those final girls when the movie, you know, finishes, this book tries to display that. I DNF'd this book 100 pages in because, first of all, biggest mistake, number one, I read a book by a man. I DNF'd it because the female main characters in a monologue said something to the extent of men die because they're like in the wrong place or the wrong time, but women die because they're women. Basically, he's saying that serial killers, murder victims, men just get killed because it's unfortunately they're in the wrong place, but women get killed by serial killers because they're women. And I was like, you know what? I am not reading this sexist material anymore. I put it down. I'm sorry, guys. Next up, I have Face Off by Chelsea Curto, which I know is going to hurt a lot of people. I have read a lot of sports romance, right? I've read a lot of ice hockey romance. This was one of the worst. I really struggle with friends with benefits. To me, it's one of the worst couple dynamics out there. I am somebody, again, this all comes down to personal taste and preference. I am somebody who needs the main couple to have an emotional connection with each other. Like if I do not see them develop an emotional connection, I will literally be gnawing at the bars of my enclosure in a bad way, okay? So like these two, it was like reverse Grumpy Sunshine, and it was just friends with benefits. They were sleeping with each other. The whole book was just spice, like worse than icebreaker level of just spice, okay? It was just all spice, no emotional development, and I got 90% through this book. I was forcing myself through this book because I was like, this book is so beloved and so popular, why aren't I liking it? And then I went, oh, because they're just banging and no emotional development is happening between the two. So I was really upset by this. I've had many people tell me I need to just continue the next book because it's going to be like Windy City where the first one isn't that good, but like to be honest, I love Mile High and a lot of people don't. So if I didn't like Face Off, am I really going to like the rest of this series? I have no idea. Another one that I think is really gonna hurt some people's feelings, it is Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. Now, for this one, I do not think that this book is necessarily a bad book, and I have read a lot of Devney Perry before, but I purely wanted to read this book because of how hyped it was on TikTok, because I was like, oh my god, she's written a romantasy for the first time, and for those who know, she's purely a romance author. So I was so excited. I was low-key hoping it was gonna give Rebecca Yarros in terms of like this beautiful transition across. Number one, this book was far too long, okay? I was very graciously sent an arc of this book and it was over like 600 pages. So it was a big book, and also it was like in the B format. So it was like, I kid you guys not, it was like the size of Binding 13. It was huge. It was far too long. And again, I really struggle with romantasies where like, let's just go from one place to the other for the entire book. This was an example of a book that they spent so long doing nothing and it didn't even add to the plot. The ending was beautiful. I know Rites of Starling is out, but I don't think I can put myself through another book that is that thick for no reason. I love a thick book, okay? I love Kindred's Curse Saga, ACOTAR, all those books. Like, I love a thick book if it is necessary. This book was unnecessarily long. I really feel like she was writing to fill a page count and I was bored. I was like, if we have to stay in these bloody tree houses for any longer, I'm gonna lose my mind. The ending was like, yeah, it was cool, but like, honestly guys, it was such a waste of time for me personally, because again, I don't enjoy that in a fantasy. I need more substance. I need something to keep me intrigued, and this book just did not. So I know that a lot of people love it because maybe it's their cup of tea, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. I then have a thriller. I have Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. This wasn't necessarily a bad book. It just took me so long to read, and that is just not like me for a thriller. I'm usually reading them within 1 to 2 days. I just found again that it was really drawn out for a book that was so tiny. I think what I need authors to like start doing is getting to the point, but if you're gonna fill a book, like make the content like worth our time, if that makes sense. So with this, the plot twist, amazing. I loved it. It was spectacular, but I was just bored for such a long time. So this wasn't necessarily a bad book. It just was not as good as everyone says it was. I think I ended up giving it 2 stars because I just took so long and like far too long to get into it. Oh, this one boils my blood. Next up, I have Blood of Hercules. Funnily enough, talking about blood. Blood of Hercules by Jasmine Mast, I think this book is. I despise this book for so many reasons. To this book's credit, it was hilarious. I love a stupid romantasy, you guys know. I DNFed this because one, it's a why choose, and I hate when it's why choose coupled with the bully trope. I absolutely despise it. Either have one or the other. Have why choose, have bully, but when it's bully and why choose, I'm like, what are we doing here? Why are you with these men that are awful? Absolutely not. But I DNF'd it because it was set in like this academy, Greek mythology, I think, style, like Roman mythology, I don't know. And basically I DNF'd it because the female main character had a pet snake who was really funny at the start, but then in the middle of a battle was like, slay queen, kill them all, F the patriarchy. Why? Why is this snake saying slay queen, slay diva, F the patriarchy? Like what? Oh my God. I think sometimes authors try to be funny, and when you're not funny, like why are you trying to be funny? Why are you trying to be funny when you're clearly not funny? Like that is... Next up is one that I'm apologizing in advance for. Hi! Saving 6. I actually had an issue low-key with this whole duet. For those who don't know, the Boys of Tommen series is broken down into like stories of different couples. So the first 2 books follow one couple, the second 2 books follow another, and then we go a little bit off track after that. But obviously I heard so much about Johnny and Shannon, and that lived up to the hype. And I talked about that in my best books of BookTok, whatever. Johnny and Shannon lived up to the hype. I'm gonna say something right now that Joey and Aoife, to me, did not live up to the hype, which really hurts because I love Joey. Like Joey, I also just love Aoife as like a separate character. I love them both individually, but together their story just drove me nuts. And in particular, Saving 6 was such a waste of time. I really don't like when you spend a whole book recounting the events that happened in a previous book in another person's point of view. And for those who don't know, literally the entirety of Binding and Keeping 13 is retold from the point of view of Joey and Aoife in Saving and Redeeming 6, but with of course some bonus content about their relationship and their backstory. And it just drove me nuts because I was like, you just wasted 2 books that we could have had new content about this couple, and we didn't get it. I also personally am not a fan of the trope that these 2 were slapped with. If you know, you know. I'm not going to spoil it. A lot of people feel like it is something that Joey needed, but I actually think he didn't, because he spent his entire life looking after all of his siblings. Joey reminds me so much of Lip Gallagher, if you've watched Shameless, and it just like really hurts my heart that that is like the way that his story went. Did I cry reading these books? Yes, but Saving 6 in particular was such a waste. Redeeming was good. This I was so disappointed about, and I don't understand why people, without offending anybody, I think a lot of people love toxic relationships, and that's why I'm like not the biggest fan of enemies to lovers either. Not that that is, but people love toxic relationships and I just don't understand it. It upsets me when people like shame people who love friends to lovers when they love toxic relationships. I'm like, oh, so like you don't love healthy relationships but you love toxic ones? Like, what is happening? I don't know. Look, we're being loud and with our chests today, guys. I'm really sorry. Okay, next up I have Cross the Line. This is by Simone Sultani. This is like an F1 PR relationship, fake dating, I think, type of vibe. This was actually the worst because I can't stand when Sunshine, like Grumpy Sunshine, when she is written like a 5-year-old. That is genuinely how I felt reading this book. I felt like I was like enjoying the scenes where he was talking and that, but whenever she was like speaking or had her moments, I genuinely felt like I was reading about a 5-year-old girl. And then when it got to their like spicy scenes, I was like, I can't like get into this or like root for them because it feels icky. Like she feels so immature. Another one that I think is gonna upset a lot of people is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This is not a bad book. I want to preface this saying this straight away. This is not not a bad book, but to me, it did not live up to the hype because I just couldn't relate to these characters. This book took me 2 weeks to read, which is just not like me. And again, it's a small book. It's only probably the size of this. Like, it's very small, under 300 pages, maybe 300 pages, whatever. I just really struggle, and this is why I don't read YA romance. I read YA romantasy because the characters seem more mature in my mind. Whereas if I'm reading about characters that are like 15, 16 years old and they're in high school, I can't relate to them because it's just so far removed from where I am, like at my age, that I couldn't get into this book and it felt like it dragged. So to me, this book was not worth the hype. But again, it comes down to personal preference because I just didn't like it personally. You know what I mean? So I can see why people really enjoy this, and especially younger readers. I can see why they would enjoy it, but I just did not. Up next is The Pumpkin Spice Cafe. I hated this book. And I love a stupid Hallmark, you know, seasonal read as much as the next person. But the thing an issue I had with this book was that the characters were in their like 30s, maybe 40s, I can't remember. And they were written like they were 12 years old. The maturity levels of the female main character drove me insane. And like I said, I understand it's supposed to be whimsical and silly, and I'm a whimsical gal, okay? But I can't get on board with this 30-year-old woman who owns a cafe, binging out on red licorice until she gets a sugar high and runs around like a bunny rabbit. I just don't believe it. Everyone in this town was written so immaturely. I'm like, what kind of happy gas are we on? It was just too much for me. And I've heard since that her writing has gotten better, but it genuinely astounds me that like she's still writing these books. I think there's like 6 of them in this Dream Harbor series, and that people enjoy them. So if you have read the rest of her series, like please tell me why, because I've heard such bad things even about the books that followed. So let a gal know. Now we're getting into some books that I genuinely just did not like. First up, My Dark Romeo by LJ Shen and Parker S. Huntington, I think it is. Guys, I just want to know why we like this, because this is like a Romeo and Juliet inspired story. Obviously it's like somewhat modern but not, which is funny, and I was like kind of on board with them for a while until it like becomes this forced marriage vibe in a scene where like she seduces him and he's like, no, like I don't want kids or something like that. She proceeds to go into his trash bin, find a used tissue, if you know what I mean, and tries to impregnate herself with that. I was so done. I can't even express to you. Oh my God, how did you people like this book? I genuinely want to know. Up next is a Hear Me Out, and I just want you to hear me out. Okay, I just want you to hear me out. It's ACOTAR. Now hear me out. Hear me out. Because I know you just heard me say that I love the whole series. Book 1 is terrible. Everybody will tell you, read this book, it's so good. Nobody tells you that it actually gets good after book 1, because book 1 is one of the worst fantasy books that I've ever read. It was bad. I even guessed that riddle that she had at the end. You know, the riddle, straight away as soon as she said it, I was like, it's that, and it was that. This was just bad. However, the rest of the series is amazing. This is like put in here for me to tell you guys that sometimes, I know I'm contradicting myself because I just said that a lot of first books that people wrote are terrible. I almost didn't pick up the rest of this series, but then all of you were telling me that it gets so much better, and I'm so glad that I did, because if I did not read A Court of Mist and Fury, can you imagine how embarrassing that would be? How embarrassing that would be, because it just gets so much better. I always say that A Court of Mist and Fury feels like it's written by a completely different author, because genuinely I'm like, she didn't write this book and this book, because that's just not true. So let it be a warning, and maybe I'll have to, you know, go back and sort myself out with that as well, that just because the first book in a series is bad doesn't mean the rest are. So maybe I'm gonna be a little bit more open to the other books that I spoke about today that I said they were terrible. Up next, I have like an OG BookTok book, and it is The Roommate by Rosie Danan. This was like an OG book, and I think the original had like a hot pink cover. They were sitting on a couch sort of thing. From my memory, because I read it definitely 4 years ago, I think that she is like a spicy creator. No, he's a spicy creator. They're roommates and it just, guys, it was just bad. It was just icky and bad and not good in any way, shape or form. So if anybody actually did like The Roommate, please let me know. Oh my God, like I said, books that just boil my blood. I then have a book called There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark. I have read a lot of dark romance. This is by far one of the worst. The opening sequence to this book, oh my God, I literally can't even speak about it because it's absolutely disgusting and feral. I don't know why I finished this book, and I just absolutely could not stand the male main character. I just could not get behind this book. There are certain scenes in this book that I will always remember because they just icked me out to the max. Another one. This is a big one, guys. Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. Oh my God, where do I start with this? So this book is almost split up into like two parts. There is a beginning and then there's like an after, if you will. So there's like a story and then there's an after. I loved the first half of this book. The second half was absolutely despicable. Absolutely despicable, because without spoiling too much, this is a very dark romance, so please check the trigger warnings. It is literally about this girl and her sister's fiance who get kidnapped and put in this basement by this man who makes them do terrible things, but also terrible things to each other, if you will. And because these two end up being, understandably, trauma bonded, when they get out, I just can't, I can't condone the actions of the two of them. I absolutely can't condone the behavior of the two of them. I'm trying not to spoil it. I can't support what happened. I cannot support what happened. At number 20, I have They Both Die at the End. I cannot stress this enough. This is the textbook definition of a waste of my time. This book was 300 pages, okay? 300 pages of a waste of time. The title tells you what happened, but even this journey that these two boys went on was such a waste of my time because nothing happened, nothing exciting happened, and I thought maybe there would be a plot twist, something fun. No, it was a waste of 300 pages. Well and truly. I then have Priest by Sierra Simone, which is actually the very first book that I ever DNF'd, like literally ever. So up until Priest, even if I hated a book, I would still finish it because I was like, no, like I don't want to DNF it. Like I've read it now. Like I may as well finish it, see if it gets better. I tried to read Priest for 7 months. 7 months where I was picking it up and putting it down because I was like, I just don't like this. And then I realized, oh, I don't like this Priest. He's absolutely terrible. I've read Priest romances before and I've really enjoyed them. I hated the dynamic. I hated that he called her Little Lamb or whatever the heck it was. It was icky, and this was the first time that I realized, oh, this book is not for me. There's a reason why I haven't finished this 300-page book in 7 months. Up next is a Colleen Hoover book, and it is Ugly Love. Oh my God, guys. How do we like this? Again, you can see I don't like toxic relationships, and this was a toxic relationship. This man needed therapy. I cannot stress enough how much this man needed therapy. On TikTok and everything was floating around this "Oh Rachel" or like "God Rachel," whatever it is, and I thought it was going to be this romantic moment. The fact that you guys are romanticizing this is absolutely sick and twisted in my head. It's sick and twisted in my head. So yeah, no, absolutely jail. I cannot. Next up is a book I love to hate. It is Twisted Hate by Anna Hong. This follows Josh and Jules, which if you've read the series, Josh is Ava's like little brother or big brother, I don't know, but he is a doofus and a silly, silly man, and I just really loved him up until his own book where he ruined himself. Something happens between the main couple in this book that to this day, again, 3 or 4 years later, I cannot get over. I cannot forgive him for what he did in this book. Again, I am not a fan of friends with benefits, and especially when this was like frenemies with benefits, which means they were like enemies. Definitely enemies with benefits. I didn't enjoy them at all. I like them both individually. Jules is such a baddie and a girl boss, but what he did to her in this book is unforgivable. Literally, I will never, ever, ever forgive him for what he did in this book. Next up, I have A Not So Meet Cute by Megan Quinn. This just had far too many icky and gross moments in relation to pregnancy and like classes and stuff like that. There was many times where they went to like, they had like a couple that they were friends with, and I think the wife was like expecting a baby or something like that. Oh my God, it just got so icky. I can't remember exactly the 2 things that really grinded my gears on it, but I can just remember that there was 2 things that happened that just made my skin crawl and made me ick the heck out in relation to babies or like the pregnancy classes and stuff. I couldn't continue it. And finally, I have All Your Perfects, also by Colleen Hoover. This book is literally about 2 people who start the book off being cheated on by their respective partners. They then proceed to get together, and then the man in this couple who already was cheated on by his girlfriend cheats on his wife. They were both cheated on, they get together, he proceeds to then cheat on her because she can't have a baby. It is 8 a.m. in the morning and I'm trying not to have a crash out, but you best believe this is where we need to end this video. Alrighty guys, that is all for today's video. Thank you so much for sticking through all the way to the end. If you did, I really, really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts. I hope I didn't offend anybody too badly because God knows I was kind of brutal on some of these. Again, these are all my opinions and I will always say to anybody, if you hear somebody say that they did not like a book, please do not let that deter you from actually picking up that book if you want to read it, because I have read so many books that others have hated and I have ended up loving them because it all comes down to personal preference as to what you like as a reader. If you like the things that I was talking about today, please go and pick them up because you may end up finding a new all-time favorite. They are just books that I did not enjoy. If you guys want to let me know some books that you read because of BookTok that were not worth the hype, I would love to know. Maybe give me your top 3 in the comments down below. As always, if you guys aren't already, you're more than welcome to follow me on my socials. I'll leave my handles on the screen and in the description box. And if you'd like to, you can like this video and subscribe to my channel and make sure that you are hitting that notification bell, that way you're notified each time a brand new video goes up. A gentle reminder as well that I have started doing members only videos. If you'd like to join in on the Book Bestie squad, all of the information can be found at the top of my channel page. Thank you guys so much for stopping by again. I really, really appreciate it wherever you are in the world. I hope you are having a lovely day or a lovely night and I will see you all next time. Bye!